welcome to another Peplink University video. Today I'm going to demonstrate Peplink PCI DSS 4 hardening guide. This is a new guide built with West Networks and Peplink to update our PCI DSS 3 guide to a PCI DSS 4 and then demonstrating how to set these up in control for zero-touch deployments. So let's get started. So the first thing with DSS 4 is we want to make sure we have unique username and passwords that are set. And if you notice this, we've got lots of devices here, so we want to lock this down pretty easily. So what we're going to do is in our group, we're going to go to Settings, Device System Management, and then we're going to just lock this thing down. So Device Web Admin and CLL, we're going to turn this on, and you want to give it a unique user name. So we don't want to have admin. We want to have Peplink University admin or something like that. And then here we can assign a random password for each device or a shared password. I personally like the random, and once you do that, you can download a backup copy of those passwords. And then you can also, once you apply these changes, let me just save changes, you can assign new ones. So say if you have any turnover or every 6 months or every 180 days, you can actually assign a new password every 180 days per your security policies. The next thing you can do is go into device system management and make sure that we can set how you authenticate to this system. So you can do local accounts, radius, or TACX. We can also enable or disable the CLI and SSH consoles. And then here we have the security access. So how do you access this? So I can say only allow it via HTTPS, only allow accessible via the LAN, and then only allow it on a specific VLAN. So if I have a management network, an IT network, or the untagged to say my management network, and then we have VLANs beyond that. So if I have a whole bunch of guest networks, for example, on this environment, once I set allowed LAN networks, if someone's on the guest, they're not going to be able to log into any of my devices. So this is going to lock that down. And then I can scroll down and I can see the SD switches. So once again, I can make this HTTPS. I can make this the management port or a VLAN. And then here, once again, I can just say my default VLAN. So only allowing the management on the default VLAN. So guests and staff, my WANs, my NDI network, they're not going to be able to access these switches and log in. And the same thing with the APs. We can restrict that to SSL and 443. The next thing we're going to want to do is lock down the LCD front panel. So we're going to lock that down, all devices in the group. You can assign a random password or a shared password. If I do a shared password, right here, I can just choose the password. So I could say 2024. And now any device with an LCD panel is going to be locked with a password of 2024. This is going to lock all the physical appliances, make sure there's a unique username and password on everything, and restrict access to those management interfaces from a very specific VLAN to restrict access from guests and people that are snooping around. So then I just click Save Changes. Okay, so now that those are saved, you can see here that we've gone to the device dashboard. We've set our credentials here. We've restricted the web admin interface, disabling management on the WAN, which we've done now. So HTTPS, LAN only. Securing LAN management access right here. We restricted to the untagged LAN. Local admin, we've ensured that it's restricted to the specific accounts. The next thing we have to do is make sure we have multi-factor authentication. So now that we've restricted all this access, we need to make sure that in control is multi-factor authentication. So we can go to the organization settings, Peplink University, organization settings, and scroll down. And right here, we can force two-factor authentication all users. This is going to make sure that anybody that has access to in control in your organization, it's going to require two-factor authentication for them. The next thing we have to do is disable ICMP response on the WAN interfaces. This is part of PCI compliance. So we're going to go to our overview page here. We're going to go back to our summit. We're going to click on our EPX router, settings, remote web admin. And then we just want to click on our WAN interfaces and disable ICMP, reply to ICMP ping. So I can click on VLAN 4 and then just reply to ICMP ping and save and apply. And you can see right here on my cellular one, reply to ICMP, ICMP ping, and hit no, save and apply. And so you just want to do that to all of your devices. Cellular 2, reply to ICMP ping, no, save changes. No, save changes. No, save changes. No, save changes. And no, save changes. So now we've blocked ICMP ping. So the next thing we want to do is restrict inbound access and create a default firewall policy. So we can just close out of this, go back to in control, go back to our group level, network settings, firewall rules. And we want to make sure we are blocking inbound firewall rules. So we're going to go to manage firewall rules on this devices, hit save. We're going to create a rule set. We'll call this default PCI DSS 4. Oops, if I can spell right. There you go. And then here we just want to make sure our default inbound is deny. And you can also do other things, but most importantly, we want to make sure default inbound is deny and intrusion and DOSS are protected. From there, you can create additional firewall rules. Like for example, your outbound firewall rules, you could create one that says, block regions, destination regions, and then you could choose like North Korea or any other country that you might want to deny. I mean, if you obviously live in these countries, you don't have to block them, but the idea is you could block countries for outbound access. Hit deny. You can even enable an event logging. I mean, there are some countries, including the United States, that are top for hackers and stuff. So just, you can go pull those list of countries. We don't want a particular, I'm just picking countries, but you can set that up and hit save. If we're going to restrict outbound access to specific regions, we could also add a rule to allow SaaS, regardless of the country they're in. So I could say destination, SaaS, and if I'm a Google workspace company or Google Meet or Microsoft Office 365, I can allow that, enable event logging, and then drag that above the block countries. So if I'm trying to do a Google Workspace Meet or Office 365 with somebody in one of those countries, I would actually allow that but block other traffic. Another nice feature for locking down your products, and this is up to your own choices here, but you can go to content blocking. We can block adware and malware right from the URL database capabilities here. We can update the database automatically, and so we can make sure that's updated automatically. We can also block things like proxy and anonymizers, and then we can block applications. So I can block BitTorrent, for example, and other types of applications. And so there's a whole bunch of applications here that we can block. For example, like DNS over SSL or DNS crypt. And so you can make sure people aren't encrypting their DNS and then accessing systems that they shouldn't be accessing. You can even block services like Tor. And so you can lock down applications, and there's a bunch of applications. You just scroll through the site, hit save. Let's see here. Regular review of firewall rules and routers. You should also set up a scheduled review to make sure that you're doing this. So you should set up like every 6 months reviewing your firewall policies and making sure you should document those changes and create approval. One of the nice things about In Control for documenting changes is if I go back to the group level, I can go to settings, operational log, and you'll be able to see that we are able to monitor any changes. So you can see here, Peter, firewall rules, apply firewall rule, generic traffic, default service firewall, default, allow. So you can see I've made changes to the firewall rules. You can see right here, firewall rules, and you can see here I'm making all these firewall rules in the organizational log. So you can see as I'm making these firewall rules, who's making the rules, where I'm making the rules, whether I'm setting allow and deny rules. And so you can kind of see that SAS right there. You can see that right there, and you can see meet, office, allow. Here's my countries that I'm denying. And so you'll be able to have that operational log, which is really nice. And that's compliant with DCS 1.1.7. Network segregation. Implement network segregation. So especially if you're doing like PCI requirements for like I was going to say NVR, but that's not what we're talking about. For a point of sale system, what you want to do is isolate that point of sale network and make sure it only has access to specific resources. So we can go to network settings, VLAN networks, and we can create a point of sale network. Add new network. We can call this point of sale. We can give it a VLAN 200. We don't need to apply there, so we apply it to network, and then we go to 192.168.200.1. We want to turn off inter-VLAN routing so that it cannot talk to other networks. We can turn on DHCP, or you can turn it off based on your system's requirements. You can assign DNS automatically, which puts it at the router, which I recommend. You can do DHCP reservations for your point of sale systems if you want to. And we want to, for the switches, we do not want them on this network. So we hit save. So now that I've created this point of sale network 192.168.200.1, I can actually now create firewall rules to allow and block traffic. So I can go to network settings, firewall rules, default. Now I already know that my inbound firewall rules are blocking all traffic. I'm skipping a step. So the first thing we want to do is create a grouped network, which is your point of sale services that need to be accessed. So I can say add new group, and I can say point of sale servers. And so say if I want to use 8.8.8.8 for DNS, I could add that there if I wanted to. Now this could also be a different rule. And then I could say, so let's say we have 3 or 4 servers that this thing is connecting to, 172.65.78.90. .195.67.23.57. And these are the servers that are being accessed on the network. So we hit save. So we're saying point of sale needs to talk to 8.8.8. It needs to talk to these servers. Then I can go to network, firewall rules, PCI DSS 4, outbound, add rule, and I can say point of sale allow. And so we can go source, network, 192.168.200.0/24, destination, grouped network, point of sale servers, allow, and enable logging. Hit save. And I can move this up to the top, and then add rule, point of sale deny. And once again, source, IP network, 192.168.200.0/24, destination any, deny, enable logging, okay, and move this to the top. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, if the source is my point of sale network and it goes to the point of sale servers, allow that traffic. If it goes to our point of sale traffic network and it's going anywhere else, deny that traffic. Then it's going to follow other policies. So my point of sale network, now you can fine tune this by the port. So for example, if I know that I only need to talk to those servers on TCP port 2600, I can do that right here as well. So you can lock it down to the specific port. So you can fine tune this, but we just want to make sure that you're at least meeting the minimum where you're isolating the point of sale server traffic. So point of sale servers can only talk, or point of sale devices can only talk to approved servers, and they're blocked anything else. And then we block them internally as well. We want to make sure they can't talk internally. So we're blocking them externally, and then internally we can block them as well. So we can say point of sale. And once again, if the destination is the point of sale network, 192.168.200.0, deny and save. And so it's going to block the point of sale, anybody from talking to that. So my internal network firewall rules. So nothing's going to be able to talk to the point of sale network. Hit save. Now, say you have a bunch of point of sale networks. I can actually go back to my grouped networks, and I could add a new group, point of sale VLANs, 192.168.200.0/24, 192.168.201.0/24, and I could add my point of sale VLANs here, save, go back to my firewall rules, go to the PCI DSS, and source allow, and I could say grouped network, point of sale VLANs can talk to the point of sale servers, and then I can say source grouped network, point of sale VLANs, anything, deny, hit OK. And then down here on internal point of sale, I can say anything to my grouped network of point of sale VLANs, deny, and enable logging. Hit OK. So now what I've done is I've created a grouped network for point of sale VLANs and point of sale servers. I'm allowing that traffic, denying point of sale VLANs to anything on the internet, and then denying anybody from talking to my point of sale VLANs on any VLAN, and enabling intrusion detection. Hit save. And so now my point of sale VLANs can only talk to the servers they're supposed to talk to. Nothing can talk to the point of sale VLANs, and the point of sale VLANs have no access to the internet outside of the approved server destination. So that's going to be our network segregation, and then our firewall rules to do that segregation. And that's going to be DSS requirement 1.2. So the other thing is we got to create secure configuration standards. This means we need to make sure that we have standards that are templated and upgradable. One of the things that InControl brings to the table here is if I have 500 stores, I can make changes right here, and all 500 stores are following those policies. I don't have to worry about a single store not having the proper configuration or checking those stores. And once again, I have operational integrity by going to settings, operational log, and I can see all of these changes that are being made. And you can see those changes right here. I've added the 200. I've changed it right there. Changed it. There's my group network point of sale VLANs. So all of my changes are being made and tracked in the operational log. So I have operational integrity and I have organizational standards. So I'm creating a template in InControl that applies to all of my locations and stores. Okay, so the next thing is logging and monitoring. So ensure that logging is enabled on your firewall router. So we've talked about that, and you've watched me do it. I've actually turned on logging. So if you look at this, I've enabled logging on all of my firewall policies. This ensures that we're tracking what's happening on the network. So we're not just blanket allowing traffic through with no operational log. Once you've done this, you've turned on this logging, then you can go to settings, device system management, and you can actually transmit these logs. If I scroll all the way down, logging, SNMP, and NetFlow. So I can turn this on and I can transmit my logs to any destination SIEM I want. And you can see that right here. So I can send events to remote syslog servers, source any LAN or just a specific. So if I only want to monitor VLAN 200, I can do that, or I can monitor all my traffic. And so I can send session logging, URL logging, and events. I can also enable SNMP and get that configured. And I can also enable NetFlow. So I can send all of this information to my SNMP trap, my SIEM for real-time analysis. So if you're using an SIEM, if you have not looked at everyone, I advise looking at like Fluency, security, they've got a great tool available. And so you can go through and configure your logging and have that all automated. So every single one of your stores automatically has the logging enabled. You don't have to log into each and every router to make that happen. Finally, you want to create an incident response plan and train your team. This is outside the scope of Peplink, but it is important. If we're going to do PCI DSS 4, you need an incident response team plan. This is where Fluency Security, and that is not a paid advertisement, it's just somebody I've been working with, but that's where having a monitoring software can help you with this. If you create an incident response plan, you can have tickets, you can create alerts based on those, and then do adaptive response based on incidents, and then train your team. Make sure they're aware of your plans, your procedures, and your policies. So create an SOP for different actions like updating the firewall rules or installing a new device. Don't just allow people to plug stuff into your network. Hey, if you want to plug into the network, let's follow the SOP. Let's sign it off. Let's make sure it's approved. Let's make sure it's on the proper VLAN. Make sure it has a documented IP address and that it's allowed to access specific services on the network. That just goes with good business practice behaviors. And so just make sure that you're doing that well. Outside of that, we have now locked this router down. We've created firewall policies that adhere to our organizational standards. We've locked the router's username and password down. We've restricted access on to LAN and untagged network only, so our management infrastructure. So guest network and staff cannot log into these devices or even try to log into these devices. We've isolated our point of sale network, so it is not able to access other VLANs. It is not able to access general internet. It can only access what we've asked it to, and then other VLANs or sites cannot talk to our point of sale network as well. And so we've locked that down. This is just a simple guide. It took me 23 minutes to set up, and I was able to lock down one device or 1,000 devices. That's what's nice about In Control. This gets applied to all of your sites globally. And so you can set up a configuration and actually become PCI DSS compliant very easily. There are more rules in the PCI DSS 4, but they do not apply to your router and firewall. They apply to your organization and operational procedures. So this is just the firewall and router side of the PCI DSS 4 compliance. We do advise you read the full documentation if you're trying to achieve PCI DSS 4, but this is the security requirements for your routers, and this is how Peplink handles that. Thank you so much and have a great day.